Sereyegov stood atop the battlements, gazing up at the sky, savoring the rare moment of silence. The orbital bombardment that had pounded the energy dome for nearly 2 hours finally ceased. It wasn't hard to guess why. Even pirates weren't insane enough to keep hammering a shield while their ground forces launched an assault. He looked down at the mustering enemy below. Thousands of them. Mostly those strange humanoid robots, crude imitation of Necrons. Scouting drones reported 4,000 enemy infantry alone, plus hundreds of tanks. And what did they have? 2 cadres. A cadre of ex-guardsmen and a dedicated garrison cadre of a Tau. With a scant support from security forces, maybe 400 soldiers defended the bridge. And only 2 tanks. An aging Liman Ras and a Saurus MBT, a Gwevisa-designed vehicle. Sereyegov inhaled deeply, then closed his eyes. They were outnumbered, 10 to 1, and everyone knew it. A smile spread across his face, and then laughter erupted. Loud, unrestrained, echoing across the walls. Every soldier heard it. "Commissar?" One of his Slavian brothers in arms asked, concern etched in his features. Stanislav shook his head, eyes sweeping across his comrades. Tau, human, Tarelian, and even Galg.
"Do you see those fools out there?"
He boomed.
"Do you see them?"
Silence answered him. Of course they saw them. They saw them and knew the odds weren't in their favor.
"The enemy gathered an army so that they might hope to win."
He laughed, a low, feral sound.
"Only one bridge leads to this island. One. No more. And this bridge is protected by us, the tenacious sons and daughters of Slavia, Norhim, and Prefectia."
He shook his head, a mixture of fury and pity crossing his features.
"These fools don't know us. They don't know how we were deployed on Stygian 9 to hold back the orcs. They don't know how the Imperium abandoned us, left us to die, and yet we held the line."
He roared with unbridled rage.
"My brothers and sisters, my siblings in blood and sorrow, this isn't some discarded mining world of the Imperium, not some forgotten rock. This is Furious Ned. This is Wild Jade. This is our home."
He saw it, the resolve rising in the eyes of his comrades. Memories of pain, loss and horror on Stygia 9 now fueling determination instead of despair.
"Look around you. Look at your brothers and sisters. Look at our allies. The crew didn't abandon us on Stygia 9, and we are not alone now."
His voice carried across the defenders, lifting them, igniting them.
"Now look at them. That rabble. That scum. They dare to attack our home. Dare to threaten our families."
A pause, silence thick with anticipation. Then a single command.
"Let's kill them."
The soldiers roared, raising their weapons high. Even the aliens joined, their war cries echoing through the battlements. Slavian from the mother's cradle to the warrior's grave. Normheim, skull to war, skull to death, skull to the fallen. Perfectian, ash to ash, flame to flame. Tau voices for the greater good. Tarelians for clan and glory. In one fluid motion, he drew his power sword and raised it high, igniting the blade. It shone like a beacon of defiance against the upcoming storm. He turned towards the enemy's approach, scanning the battlefield. They were over a kilometer away, pushing through the energy shield in tight, concentrated formations. A fatal mistake, and one they would pay for dearly. He turned to his radio operator.
Orders to artillery. Fire at will.
He commanded, his voice calm but sharp. Acknowledge, sir. Artillery. Fire at will. The operator repeated into the headset. Moments later, the artillery in the back, including a basilisk, roared to life. Thunderous booms shook the ground, shells whistling through the air before detonating among the enemy ranks. Seryegov allowed himself a grim smile, watching the chaos ripple through the opposing forces as they rushed towards the bridge. He leapt down from the barricade, scanning his troops.
Do not waste ammunition.
He barked.
Wait until the bastards are in range. Allow them to punch up if you must. Hold them long enough for every civilian to reach the main shelters.
His comrades nodded, moving swiftly to their positions. His mind flickered briefly to his wife and 2 daughters. The thought grounding him in the midst of war. A ping on his private channel drew his attention. Almost missed it. Seryegov. The voice of Shasnel Noedel cracked urgently through the comms. We have a problem. Reka watched as transports carried civilians across the bridge. They were nearing the end of the evacuation. The shelters were designed for rapid entry and exit. And though security cadres handled much of the heavy lifting, cadets poured every ounce of effort into ensuring safe passage. The thunder of artillery broke his concentration. He turned towards the island. Enemy forces were advancing, and the clock was ticking. Even with all their experience, the Gwevesa would struggle to withstand the coming assault. Surveillance drones hovered overhead, feeding real-time visuals of the city streets to the defenders. Strong Strike's stomach sank as he saw the sheer number of enemies gathering on the western bank of the river. The horde was now pushing through the shields and artillery fire towards the city. All troops, alert! Trainer Conan shouted over the comms. The enemy has deployed submerged infantry and droids to strike key positions in the city. Their likely target? The shield generator and civilians. Galk allies are engaging them underwater, but the numerical advantage is heavily against us. New defensive positions are in effect. 4th squad, with me. Strong Strike didn't hesitate. He sprinted towards the central spire, heart hammering. To his horror, upstream, the bridge was already under fire. Lights and explosions flickered beneath the surface. The enemy was striking both the western bank and the river at the same time. While the inner wall held strong, the city center had far fewer defenders. Mostly light infantry security teams. The Galks alone wouldn't be able to stop them. He knew. There had to be a way to slow the river assault. Then it hit him. He grabbed his comm. Trainer, I have an idea. It better be good, Reka. We under attack. Conan's voice snapped. We need to move the Galks from the river and deploy EMP grenades into the water. The electric charge should disrupt every enemy target in it. Silence. Conan considered the proposal. Not a bad plan. I will push it up the chain. Now, get to your positions. Downstream, the battle raged. Crimson bolts striking across the water, spider-like forms emerging from beneath the surface. Moments later, movement caught his eye. Here they come! Veldenet shouted. A squid-faced warrior broke the surface, firing at the bridge. Oshivesa sent a pulse bolt straight between its eyes. Unlike the defenders on the first bridge, they were ready. Strong Strike unleashed a hail of pulse fire, sending at least 4 more of aquatic attackers to the bottom. Then he spotted new movement along the shore. They coming onto the shore! He barked. We're heading for shield generator and command center. As if to validate his fears, spider-like shapes began emerging from the river 100 meters away. 4-legged droids, eyes glowing, heavy cannons bristling, stepped onto the shore. They opened fire instantly. Alongside them, strange aquatic aliens and tall, lanky black droids advanced. The first plasma bolts struck the embankment and the generator complex wall. Strong Strike knew the generators relied on water cooling to operate at peak efficiency. If they went down, so would the shields. Before the worst fears could set in, Commander True Strike and her elite cadre appeared above, crisis suits blazing, raining plasma fire on the attackers. Her troops fired from fortified positions atop the command spire, thinning the waves. Strong Strike focused on what he could kill. He fired relentlessly at the enemy that emerged from the water. Then an explosion shook the bridge. Gun Alm's icon went charcoal black. A fellow cadet's life extinguished in an instant. Strong Strike froze, trying to locate the source, but couldn't find one. The units on the shore were focused on the generator. Unless... "Move back! Away from the barrier!" he shouted, linking his helmet to a nearby surveillance drone. The camera revealed the truth. One of the spider droids had scaled a support column, blasting at the bridge barrier from below. The lanky black droids climbed alongside it, firing at anything that moved. "Mechanical foes climbing the bridge!" he called out. "EMP grenades!" Conan barked. "Take those bastards down!" Calling in drone support, a Sakurai added. Strong Strike acknowledged the tactic, but he knew drones wouldn't be here quickly enough. Grabbing an EMP grenade, he sprinted along the bridge, heart hammering. He got to the barrier and dropped it directly on top of the spider droid. The characteristic pop of the EMP sphere echoed through the bridge. Sparks danced across the droids still clinging to the support columns. Without hesitation, Strong Strike opened fire with his pulse carbine, tearing both the spider droids and lanky black companions into pieces that plummeted into the river below. He barely had time to breathe before squid-faced attackers targeted him, forcing him to duck for cover. All around, the bridge became a deadly crossfire. Enemies landed on the far side of the river, while others swarmed under the bridge, pelting the defenders from both sides. "Poor bastards have us surrounded!" Oshivesa shouted, dropping another pirate with a precise pull shot. "Now we can fire in every direction!" Strong Strike grinned. He raised his underslung grenade launcher and sent 3 timed explosive skimming into the river. Seconds later, water erupted in clouds of blood and gore as several enemy groups were shredded to pieces. Even better, the attackers had walked right into a trap of their own making. The command and hunter cadres, kept in reserve, now struck with deadly precision. Commander True Strike rained death from above, while Commander Nomad's hunter cadre struck from the opposite bank. For a moment, it seemed like victory was possible. All civilians had successfully evacuated, and they were holding the line. Strong Strike allowed himself a grim smile, until a crimson bolt tore through the water, cutting one of the crisis suits in half. The air was filled with gasps and cries of despair. A massive shape rose from the river, and then more and more. These were spider droids, but unlike the earlier wave, bigger, heavier, and far more advanced. Massive rotating cannons crowned their armored backs. 10 of those juggernauts emerged from the water on either side of the river, opening fire. Defensive positions were obliterated, and even the battlesuits had to fall back under the relentless, precise pounding. The defenders now faced an enemy they could not ignore, an armored tide that threatened to crush everything in its path. The enemy's trump card, a second wave of warriors and droids, delayed only by the valiant sacrifice of the Galgs, finally arrived. What had seemed like a path to victory now twisted into a brutal, desperate struggle. "There is no end to them!" Lunso cried out, detonating a spider droid that had climbed atop the bridge. "Just keep firing, cadets!" Conan shouted over the din. "Pick your targets and kill them! Reinforcements are en route!" They had better arrive quickly. The security forces and cadets could not hold the line alone. Heavy weapons were scarce, and no amount of training could make up for sheer firepower. A black droid kicked Zun-Jida across the bridge, sending him crashing into the opposite barrier. The machine raised its weapon, but a series of pulse rounds shredded it before it could fire. Strong Strike sprinted towards his fallen comrade. "Are you alright?" he shouted over the cacophony. "No," Vengeful Spear gasped. "Ribs broken. I need medievac now!" Strong Strike called, then vaulted back into the fray, determined to buy his friend time. A blaster bolt slammed into his armor, throwing him to the ground. But he returned fire on the offending black droid until it exploded. Moments later, new fire warriors and medic drones arrived. "Are you okay?" one of the warriors asked. "Yeah, armor held." Strong Strike waved them off and turned to point at his wounded comrade. "Get him out of here!" Reinforcements were here, and they were making the difference. Modern XV-88-3s with twin-rail rifles tore through the large spider droids, while Hammerhead's rail cannons shredded enemy armor with terrifying efficiency. Drone squadrons flew low over the river, dropping EMP grenades that sent black droids and aquatic attackers alike convulsing in the electrified water. To underscore the sudden shift in the battle, Commander True Strike swooped down in her crisis suit, fusion blade blazing. One swift arc cleaved an advanced spider droid in half, the metallic scream of its destruction lost amidst the chaos. The enemy had been stubborn, pressing hard against the defenders, but they had gained nothing beyond a tenuous foothold. The shield generator still stood. Until, without a warning, the ground trembled with a massive explosion. The shield dome flickered, shuddered, and faded. "What? How?" Erakau shouted through clenched teeth, ignoring the pain of his wounds. "We held the line! The bastards might have found another way to the generators." A samurai cursed. "Cooling pipes! Sabotage from below, no doubt." Strong Strike wanted to spit in frustration, but there was no time for anger. Every enemy in sight demanded his attention, and the battle roared on around him. He and the cadets had no idea that Highsinger himself had infiltrated the generator complex, planting over a dozen explosives before slipping away unseen. "Shields are down! Expect aerial assault!" Conan's voice cut across the chaos. "Forces on the island are evacuating to our side of the river. Hold the bridge until we are safe. Stand fast, cadets! For the greater good! For the greater good!" The cadets shouted, their voices a defiant chorus against the approaching storm. Sarah couldn't help but smile behind her T-shaped visor. This was it. Another glorious battle for her newfound clan. This was Mandalorian way. war and bloodshed, conquest and raiding. Not the soft pacifism of new Mandalorians, nor some religious cult clinging to ancient ways. No, this was the essence of being true Mandoad. The Com-Arc-class fighter transport shuddered as it descended from Kar Karoya, the Star Hunter, into the planet's atmosphere. The Mandalorian carrier was old, but it served perfectly as the clan's flagship, carrying troops and starfighters wherever they waged war. Approaching target. Vixa called from the front of a transport bay. Heavy anti-air fire? Expect fierce, desperate resistance. Sarah almost chuckled. They were Mandalorians. Whoever these Tau thought they were, they would fall, as all others had before them. The ship lurched under a direct hit, dropping several meters before stabilizing. Sarah gritted her teeth, tension and anticipation surging through her. She clenched her heavy blaster pistols, barely containing her hunger for blood. The hatch opened beneath her, revealing the battle below. The Tau city sprawled out, mushroom-shaped buildings dotted with chaos, blue and red bolts streaking through the air. They approached the main spire from the west, heading towards one of the bridges. Secure the bridges. Their clan leader's voice echoed in her mind. Cut the island defenders from their allies. Then we can slaughter them piece by piece. She knew her role. She was a hunter, ready to split the herd and savor the kill. Deploy! Vixa shouted as they passed over the bridge. Sarah leapt into the air, soaring on her jetpack. From above, the battlefield spread out clearly. The Tau were determined to hold the bridge, fully aware of the cost to their comrades if they failed. The Quarren and droids fared no better. Most struggled in the water or along the shore, unable to breach the enemy lines. At least they had managed to bring their shield down. She watched dozens of starfighters, gunships and transports fill the skies above the city, firing into buildings and defensive positions, while a surprising number of anti-air turrets welcomed them with streams of fire. Many incoming ships were shot down, falling in flames across the city. The air shook as the island's anti-orbital cannon fired skyward, followed by a brilliant lance of light from a gun near the Tau command spire. Moments later, a squadron of Fang-class starfighters strafed the cannon, blowing it apart. Mandalorians once again proving they were unmatched, regardless of the battlefield. And now it was her turn. She descended onto the defenders, both blasters blazing, taking out two disc-shaped droids and a Tau warrior before hitting the ground alongside her comrades. A distant explosion from the west distracted her for a split second, letting an enemy land a glancing hit. Her armor held. She grinned. The alloy of Beskar and Durasteel wasn't pure Beskar, but it was more than enough to withstand such fire. On top of that, her forearm combat shields activated, azure bolts harmlessly deflecting or dissipating. She went on the offensive, sending 3 Tau to their graves with 6 precise shots, then launched a mini-rocket into a small group, scattering them in all directions. Spotting a Tau battlesuit, a massive machine bristling with weaponry, she lined up her jetpack missile. She fired, and the missile flew true. A direct hit was certain, but at the last moment, a disc-shaped droid intercepted it, sacrificing itself to protect the battlesuit. Sarah scoffed, only slightly annoyed. It would fall eventually. It was just a matter of time. She dropped another Tau with 3 precise shots. She reveled in chaos, her comrades' battle chanting echoing over the comms, her own voice never ceasing to sing. Then one voice cut off. She saw it. A Tau, far larger than the others, fired an underslung grenade straight at Vexa, who hovered above the battlefield, blaster rifle on full auto. The grenade struck true, detonating in Vexa's jetpack. "No!" Sera roared as her commander was obliterated. Only bloody fragments of her friend fell to the ground. Her focus snapped to the Tau who had killed one of her own. He fired his grenade launcher again, forcing 2 Mandalorians into the air, only to be targeted by the same battlesuit she had failed to destroy. Instead of using its massive rifle, it launched a pair of missiles from a shoulder-mounted launcher. One of her brothers fired a mini-rocket in time to intercept a missile, but the other was hit directly, meeting the same fate as Vexa. Seeing red, Sera ignited her jetpack and soared at the oversized Tau, who was blatantly reloading his grenade launcher. She smashed into him, tackling him to the ground. "You!" she roared. "I will kill you!" In response, he revealed a grenade meant for his launcher. The lights on his helmet went dark. Then everything became a blinding flash of light and deafening noise. Sera screamed, leaping away, temporarily blinded and deafened by a Tau's advanced flashbang. Her helmet shielded her from the worst of it, and when she blinked the blindness away, she saw a kneeling Tau warrior, carbine trained directly on her. She reacted instantly, soaring into the air as her energy shields activated. Pulse bolts streaked past, striking her armor with a few cracks, but her skill and agility allowed her to avoid most. She fired back, forcing the Tau to reposition. The green-clad warrior proved slippery, despite his size. Most of her shots missed entirely, while others were glancing hits at best, including one that bounced off his helmet. Furious, she aimed her wrist-mounted mini-rocket and fired. Her eyes widened as the Tau threw his pulse carbine into the path of the missile. A small explosion reduced the weapon to ash, but the warrior, though wounded and on the ground, still lived. Sera landed, holstering her blasters and drawing a knife. This one deserved to be cut by her personally. Unarmed or not, she would scalp this Tau here and now. With bloodthirsty determination and her focus locked on this one enemy, Sera didn't notice another Tau sliding a rifle across the floor to him. He bent to grab it, but she wouldn't give him the chance. She raised her left wrist and fired a grappling hook, which shot out and snagged the rifle just as he grasped it. She pulled, but the warrior held firm, muscles straining against hers. Sera noted his effort. Despite his size, he wasn't as strong as he looked. Then he grabbed something from his belt and tried to load it into the rifle. A magazine, she realized. She pulled harder, even engaging her jetpack to assist. This time he failed to hold on, and the rifle soared directly into her hands. As she considered whenever to use it against him, she noticed something she had missed. At the bottom of the rifle, where the magazine should have gone, was a circular shape. A grenade. She screamed as her comb screeched and the heart on her T-visor died. An EMP grenade. A last, desperate gambit. Sarah growled in fury. Her heart and jetpack were down. The EMP had taken most of her systems, but not her muscles. She gripped her knife tighter and charged the Tau, who stood his ground. A fool. They clashed in melee combat, and it quickly became clear, despite his determination, the Tau was unskilled at close quarters. She punched, kicked, and slashed with her knife, breaking his defenses and forcing him back. A brutal strike cracked his helmet, and a powerful kick sent him sprawling. The helmet came off. She finally saw her enemy's face. Blue skin, no nose, a strange breathing slit, crimson eyes, and a square jaw. He was young, far too young to have caused her this much trouble. That only fueled her rage. "I will skin you alive," she growled, raising her blade. The Tau smiled, his gaze fixed on something behind her. She blinked, confused, before noticing a massive shadow. Turning around, she saw a caricature. It couldn't be real. A human-like giant, nearly 3 meters tall, with oversized features and bizarre, ancient-looking armor, stood right behind her. And he wasn't alone. Sarah noticed more giants, human-like soldiers, charging across the bridge, forcing other super commandos to seek safety in the air. She cursed, trying to activate her jetpack, but it was still dead. Her comms remained silent, fried by the EMP. The giant seized her by the arm, shouting in an incomprehensible language. He lifted her over his head and smashed her into the floor. Bones cracked, blood filled her mouth. There had to be something she could do, some way to fight back. She couldn't die like this. She felt herself lifted and slammed down, again and again and again. Then Sarah of Clan Vargir, nothing more than broken bones and bleeding flesh inside cracked Mandalorian armor, died. Strong Strike groaned, doing his best to ignore his wounds, and stood, glancing at the broken form of the enemy warrior, before looking up at the Ogryn who had saved him. He smiled as he recognized the giant. "Thank you for the assist, Grub," he said with a friendly nod. "You saved me." "No problem, little one," Grub answered cheerfully. "Grub no like buzzy ones. Angry bees making bad noise. Grub smash bees. Smash anyone. Try smash friends." Reka noted that his fellow tradesmen shared Grub's dislike of jetpack troopers, as did the troops retreating from Shokai Island. "Good to hear, Grub," Strong Strike said, scanning the chaotic battlefield. He spotted a pulse rifle and grabbed it. "Because there are still many bees to smash." He raised his new rifle and got back to work. Ravax grinned as the shield dome protecting the Tau settlement flickered and died, leaving the town fully exposed. He stood on a small, elevated platform, his mobile command center, with advanced comms and personal shielding, and surveyed his forces. Almost 200 AATs were arrayed in orderly lines. Dozens of other vehicles, hoverpods, speeders, ATPT walkers, and even artillery pieces waited for his command. Over 5,000 droids and half as many living troops were mustered alongside them. He looked up at the sky where swarms of starfighters, gunships, and transports streaked towards the settlement. Opportunistic pirates, late to the party, eager for city spoils, were met by the defenders' anti-air fire. Within moments, half a dozen ships plummeted in flames. But to Ravax, this was a futile final act of defiance. This was the end of this irritating new enemy, and the beginning of his victory. He raised a hand and pointed towards the city. "Advance!" he roared. And as one, they did. Tanks moved first, infantry behind them, lighter vehicles and transports following. When the armored line pushed through the rubble of the outer wall, they opened fire, striking the distant structures. He turned to Crimson Zero. "Order our artillery to fire! I want that wall destroyed!" "Acceptance. Understood, Master. Relaying orders," the droid replied in its monotone voice. Ravax rarely used his heavy artillery, but today was different. 40 Hawk tanks and 2 Hawk platforms waited. Hawk tanks were simple modification of AAT tanks with artillery cannons. Hawk platforms were another story. Massive converted MTTs turned into artillery beasts, relics from a madman's design. The Trade Federation abandoned them after the Naboo crisis, but he had managed to secure a pair. Now the 2 enormous guns opened fire alongside their smaller cousins, their projectiles smashing into the inner wall and buildings beyond. Ravax almost hoped the sheer sight of such overwhelming force would paralyze the Tau. But it did not. The wall's defenses responded with deadly precision. In the blink of an eye, half a dozen tanks were reduced to burning wrecks. Moments later, a missile struck one of the Hawk tanks, detonating it, and 3 more erupted in flames shortly after. "I want gunships to strafe their defenses," he roared. "I want their—" A missile slammed into the shield of his command post, detonating with a thunderous explosion. Ravax growled, eyes blazing with fury. The Tau clearly had no intention of surrendering. He turned to Wrozak. "We need to move the command platform back into the forest," he decided. "I do not intend to find out how many missiles the Tau need to bring this thing down." Wrozak nodded, giving quick orders as the platform lifted off. Statement. Incoherent reports from the second battle group. They suffered heavy losses. Cause undetermined. His droid commander reported, twitching slightly. Alert! Incoming enemies in our backlines. Crimson Zero added moments later. Enemies! What enemies? Before the droid could answer, he heard fire from behind. He turned to see one of his priceless Hawk platforms under attack. Not by battlesuits, but by a team of strangely egg-shaped armors materializing out of thin air, opening fire on his forces protecting the camp and artillery guns. Stealth suits. He ground his teeth. Dolak and Ravur, the worthless slobs tasked with finding and eliminating scouts and infiltrators in the forest, had failed. That explained how the Tau had reacted so quickly to the underwater attack. He would deal with them later. For now, one of the hack platforms detonated in a massive fireball. Redirect forces to deal with this attack! Ravax ordered, turning to Crimson Zero.
Confirmation. Understood, Master. Redirecting ATPT and speeder units to engage enemy stealth and scout units.
The droid said.
Concern. High Captain Nor Shaltor has been assassinated in his camp. Sniper shot from across the river.
Ravax froze. Among the endless sea of pirates, warlords and mercenaries, Nor had been different. Visionary, principled, simple yet noble, a man dedicated to crushing Mon Calamari and proving Quarrent's superiority. Ravax understood and respected that. And now he was gone. His friend dead. The pain of loss transformed into burning fury. Crimson Zero reported multiple overattacks. The enemy had waited for his main assault to strike at commanders and rear lines. He let his rage crystallize into sharp focus. Wrozak, you will take overall command. I trust you can handle the pests at our back and coordinate with other groups. He stated coldly. I can. Wrozak tilted his head, eyes on his leader. What do you intend to do? I will join the fight, personally. Ravax turned to the droid. Crimson Zero, bring out the Rancor. A noticeable chill ran through the air at that name. Even Wrozak looked surprised. Crimson Zero, however, obeyed.
Confirmation. Rancor deployed. Approaching our position.
They didn't have to wait long. The booming steps and the sound of trees shattering announced its approach. Moments later, a massive crimson shape broke through the tree line and advanced on the command platform. Ravax smiled. His creation. His masterpiece. A 14-meter tall, custom-built walker, painted deep crimson, with a white Rancor skull painted on its head. A custom energy shield protected the giant. Though it was almost unnecessary, thick armor allowed it to shrug off direct tank rounds. It bristled with weaponry, 2 missile racks loaded with heat seekers, multiple blaster cannons, a massive claw and flamer on the right arm, a plasma cannon on the left, and mechanical tentacles with shock spikes for capturing slaves. Rancor was a symbol of infamy and terror. Ravax leapt from the command platform onto the walker, which knelt in anticipation. Advanced droid brains allowed the machine to act independently, but usually assisted in coordinating its dozens of systems and weapons. He grabbed the ascension line and was lifted to the open cockpit, sliding into the pilot's seat with practice ease. The hatch closed, and screens lit up. Rancor, respond! He commanded.
Rancor responding. Pilot recognized. Welcome back, Master.
The droid brain replied. Run system check, Ravax ordered.
Reactor active and at full power. Shields active. Shield strength 100%. Armor integrity 100%. Structural integrity 100%. All weapons active. Ammunition 100%. Plasma obliterator fully functional. Heavy flamer functional and fully loaded. Missiles 32 ready. All systems nominal. Ready for slaughter.
The machine voice rang with a note of eagerness. Good, Ravax said, gripping the controls. Let's go hunting. Rancor let out a mechanical roar inspired by its organic namesake and surged forward toward the wild jade. He noted the armored line slowing. Despite incoming fire, the walls still stood. Any gunship attempting to hover and focus fire was shot down without exception. Even heavily armored MTTs slowed, their guns insufficient to bring down the massive wall. Furious, Ravax accelerated, each step shaking the ground. He pressed a few buttons and 6 missiles launched in rapid succession, obliterating hardpoints he had spotted. Advance! He roared over the speakers. Do not falter! Victory lies just beyond this wall! He raised the plasma obliterator and fired. A massive ball of energy arced over the infantry and tanks, exploding in blue and red fire against the wall, scorching it black. Plasma bolts and missiles rained down, but the shield absorbed them all. With mechanical roar, Rancor charged through the smoke, firing again and leaving another massive scorch mark. Seeing their warlord and Rancor join the battle, his army redoubled their efforts, focusing fire on the weak points in the wall. Remaining artillery, including the lone hug platform, scored a direct hit on a scorched section, leaving a visible crack. Ravax laughed, his bloodlust echoing across the battlefield. The might of his reavers has been unleashed, and nothing would stop them. He passed through the lines of his soldiers, then through the tanks, now at the very front, leading the charge. Fire struck his shield, yet it never fell below 80%. Tremble, Tau, for I am your doom! He roared, firing once more into the crack in the wall. The plasma shot flew through, the inner wall splintered and cracked. Rancor, still moving at full speed, smashed through a crumbling barrier, creating a breach wide enough to pass unimpeded. Almost immediately, a small tracked vehicle tried to retreat, firing its pathetic solid projectile cannon. Ravax laughed, stepping onto it and crushing it beneath Rancor's crimson feet. Whatever it carried must have been explosive, because a second later it erupted in flames. He laughed over the speakers, but hissed as a series of shots struck his frontal shield. 2 boxy, tracked tanks stood before him. One fired a solid shot rounds that were deflected effortlessly, but the other had a plasma cannon, oddly similar to his obliterator. One shot dropped his shield from 82% to 73%. He decided to not give them a second chance. His obliterator was cooling, but the heavy flamer was ready. Rancor raised its massive right arm, the flamer nozzle jolting out of 3 enormous claws. With a single pull of the trigger, Ravax unleashed a flood of liquid flame. Burn, insects! Burn! Ravax roared, delighting in the inferno, consuming vehicles and infantry alike. He growled as the tank with a plasma cannon sped backwards, flames licking its hull. The other wasn't so lucky. The fire found its way inside, detonating its ammunition. The resulting explosion scorched the ground and collapsed a building wall. Rancor stepped forward, and Ravax surveyed the carnage from his cockpit. Burned bodies, smoldering wrecks, screaming soldiers. Droids advanced through the breach into the city proper, while more sections of the wall buckled and cracked, moments from creating new openings. He let out a cruel belly laugh. "Is this all?" he mocked. "Is this the strength of the Tau Empire?" He laughed again. "I am disappointed." As if in reply, a barrage of plasma shots rained from above. Two ATs that had entered the city behind him suddenly exploded under direct hits. Ravax growled, scanning, but his sensor struggled to track the nimble Tau battlesuits. He was about to take direct control of a rear turret when a green battlesuit landed directly in front of him, its jet engines blowing the flames aside.
"You'll find no victory here, monster."
A female voice rang out. Ravax was momentarily surprised it spoke Galactic Basic, but it mattered little. "And who are you to challenge Ravax the Red and his mighty Rancor?" He half roared, half laughed, delighted by the sight of puny green battlesuit standing before him. The battlesuit shifted stance, standing tall and proud before the Crimson Titan.
"I am Shaso Furios Koka, Commander True Strike.
The Tau female declared.
Overall Commander of Furios Ned and Guardian of Wild Jade."
Ravax paused, his eyes locked on the small figure. "You." His voice grew cold and sharp. "You are responsible for the defense of this planet, of this city?"
"Yes, I am. And judging by your tone, I did a good job."
True Strike said confidently. Ravax growled, and Rancor mirrored his fury. "I will admit, you were nothing but an irritation, and you have cost me much. But your defiance ends here." He stepped forward, clawed hand striking the ground with force, plasma obliterator aimed squarely at her. He bent over, looming over the small battlesuit. "I shall roast you inside your own armor and make a feast of your flesh," he announced, eyes blazing. In response, True Strike aimed her plasma rifle at him and ignited her fusion blade.
"I shall cut you down and present your decapitated head to the ethereals on a silver platter."
She roared. Half a second later, Commander True Strike surged forward towards the flames, fusion blade blazing with azure light, straight into the Rancor's maw. Salutations, my dear viewers and listeners. Congratulations! You've managed to get all the way to the end of episode 8, part 2. I know some people will whine that I should have made one gigantic episode but from my observations, while people are more than okay with hour-long videos, they usually lose interest if the video passes 2 hours mark, or if it's close to it. Anyway, first thing first, Q&A. You know the rules. Put Q&A on top of your comment and ask one question. If you are lucky, your question will be answered. I, once again, extend my thanks to Cortulio and Tia Boba, who gave their voices to Commissar Sereyegov and Commander True Strike, respectfully. I also extend my thanks to the amazing artists who created art seen in this episode. Hayden Lumpkin, Makawi, 3D Vincenz, and Kubik Kuratko. You are all truly magnificent. I tip my hat to you. Finally, a little peek behind the scenes, because 2 regiments present in this story were fan creations from the first season of Your Homebrew series, and were to be used in Damocles Gulf Crusade Rewrite series. But I'm reusing them in this story. It would be shame for them to go to waste, since Damocles is on hiatus. Normheim Raiders, with their Viking-inspired Ogryns, are creation of Hayden Lumpkin. Slavian Warborn, with their brave Commissar, are creation of Engineer 9305. As for Perfectians, yes, sorry, that's a creation of yours truly. Now a reminder of a Star Wars x Warhammer 40k script deal I'm offering. 1-tier Patreon supporters get access to everything all the way to episode 7 in text. You will be 1 episode behind. On fan fiction, you will be 3 episodes behind, with no payment at all. I'm gathering funds for a year-long subscription to CapCut on Ko-fi, so I would be glad if you showed your support there. Finally, results of the polls, both public and exclusive to Patreon supporters. The next video in Mass Effect vs Warhammer 40k series will be: how would Mass Effect Galaxy react to the Enclaves? And the result of the public poll, both on YouTube and Patreon alike, is: how do mercenaries work in Warhammer 40k? Expect these 2 videos, as well as next installment in Your Homebrews Season 2, as I'm working on the episode 9, which, as you can probably suspect, will be the grand finale of a Battle of Furious Ned. So wait for that as well. I've also created accounts on Blue Sky and Tumblr in order to spread my presence a bit more. So, if you can, follow me on these platforms as well. Links in the pinned comment below. Lastly, like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell. That's it for today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed. Now, my dear viewers and listeners, remember, wherever you are, whatever you do, try to enjoy yourself. While you can, I wish you most critical day. Ta-ta!